Welcome back to this explainer. Look, today we are skipping all the generic storytelling, okay? We're diving straight into the engine room to deconstruct the exact mechanics and variables of the TN visa framework. Relying entirely on curated expert reports, we are going to pull apart the actionable insights, those hidden implicit assumptions, and the exact cause and effect relationships that make this highly specific legal pathway tick. So, if you're looking for a deep, substantive breakdown of how this actually operates, without any of the surface level fluff, well, you are in exactly the right place. Let's get into it. Okay, here's our agenda for today. We're going to cover 1. The TN visa mechanism itself. 2. Strict citizenship prerequisites. 3. The STEM field correlation. 4. Divergent application pathways. 5. Geography and physical presence. And finally, 6. Timeline and efficiency outcomes. All right, kicking things off with Section 1, the TN visa mechanism, focusing on its core parameters and targets. So right off the bat, we need to understand that the TN visa is definitely not some broad, globally accessible net. It just isn't. Instead, think of it as a highly specialized, expedited U.S. work authorization pathway that is strictly, and I mean strictly, limited to citizens of Canada and Mexico. It's this exclusive operational pathway born straight out of North American trade agreements. And honestly, what's super fascinating from an analytical perspective here is that from the absolute very first step, your geographic origin acts as the ultimate gatekeeper. It's essentially a closed-loop system built for a very specific geopolitical demographic. Truly understanding that rigid limitation, that's going to be our foundation for everything else we unpack today. Moving right along to Section 2, strict citizenship prerequisites, or what we can call the legal boundary. Now, this is where a lot of folks get tripped up. There is an absolute unyielding distinction between holding legal citizenship and merely holding residency in Canada or Mexico. You know, a super common implicit assumption is that, hey, if I'm a permanent resident of one of these countries, I get the exact same cross-border professional mobility as someone born there. Well, analytically speaking, that is a total false equivalency. A residency card? It's completely irrelevant here. The legal mechanism is triggered exclusively by strict citizenship. The system processes citizenship as a rigid black and white binary filter. To quote directly from expert procedural analysis, you actually need to be a citizen of the country. You can't be just a resident. It's really that simple. Residency status alone simply does not unlock this pathway. If you try to trigger this process with a permanent resident card instead of an actual passport from Canada or Mexico, the mechanism immediately hits a brick wall. It's a strict binary variable. You either have the passport or you don't. And listen, no amount of professional qualification, amazing experience, or eager employer sponsorship is going to override this initial legal boundary, period. Next up is Section 3, the STEM field correlation, where we'll look at professional thresholds. So the TN pathway is heavily calibrated for specialized professionals. It essentially acts as a highly targeted funnel, primarily capturing scientific and technical expertise. We're talking engineers, medical professionals, technologists, scientists, that kind of thing. The big analytical takeaway here is the absolute demand for perfect structural alignment. It's literally like a giant puzzle. Your formal university education and your proposed job function in the US absolutely must snap together perfectly. You can't just plug some mismatched professional background into this legal mechanism and expect it to work. It strictly correlates specialized degrees directly to specialized jobs. All right, let's pivot to Section 4, divergent application pathways, examining the operational differences by nationality. So this begs a really interesting question. Does the applicant's nationality fundamentally change the procedural application process? We really have to isolate this variable because it's a non-obvious detail that entirely dictates your logistical timeline and your strategy. A really common assumption is that, well, because Canadians and Mexicans both use the exact same TN visa label, the bureaucratic hoops they jump through must be identical, right? Actually, expert analysis reveals that's completely false. The underlying processing engine practically splits into two entirely separate operational tracks here.
Check this out. The structural execution diverges entirely based on the specific passport you're holding. Canadian pathways allow for immediate physical border processing. I mean, a Canadian citizen can literally walk, drive, or fly right up to a U.S. port of entry, hand over their formal dossier, and have the whole legal mechanism adjudicated right there on the spot. Pretty wild, right? But in stark contrast, the Mexican pathway strictly demands a mail-in or consulate procedure, and that's regardless of where the applicant currently is. This fundamentally alters the logistical friction. You're looking at entirely different preparation strategies, different timelines, and totally different legal maneuvering, all depending solely on nationality. The main actionable insight you should take away from this is that knowing your specific operational pathway is absolutely non-negotiable if you want a successful, efficient outcome. You cannot apply the Canadian physical border strategy to a Mexican application or vice versa. It just won't work. The mechanism's logistical rules are literally hard-coded into the exact passport you hold. That creates a really sharp structural divergence in exactly how you have to navigate the bureaucratic friction to get that work authorization. Moving on to Section 5, Geography and Physical Presence. Let's deconstruct some location assumptions. Now here is a critical and definitely non-obvious insight about geography. An applicant's current physical location does not invalidate their inherent eligibility. Let's look at this matrix. Say you have a Canadian citizen currently living and working way over in Belgium. Well, they are still fully eligible to apply for this North American visa right from Europe. Similarly, let's say a Mexican citizen is already living inside the United States under some other visa status. They are also completely eligible to apply via their designated mail-in pathway, and they never even have to leave the country to do it. So what's the underlying logic driving this? Basically, your legal passport, and definitely not your current GPS coordinates, dictates your ability to leverage this mechanism. The system honestly doesn't care where your physical body happens to be when the paperwork is filed. It's only checking the legal citizenship data printed right there on your travel documents. The bureaucratic engine successfully and completely separates the legal concept of your nationality from the geographical reality of where you physically reside. And that brings us to our final section, Section 6, Timeline and Efficiency Outcomes, or the cause and effect result. When we treat nationality, professional focus, and geography as strict variables in a mathematical equation, we can see the exact formula required for success. Step 1, you have to clear that strict legal hurdle of North American citizenship. Step 2, clear the highly specialized STEM or professional threshold. And Step 3, execute the logically, geographically correct application pathway. If even one of these variables is misaligned, the whole equation fails. But if they are perfectly balanced, well, if they're balanced, the resulting efficiency outcome is a highly expedited processing phase. Expert reports indicate that perfectly aligned applications for this mechanism are often assembled, submitted, and fully moving in under 14 days, less than 2 weeks. When you contextualize that within the broader landscape of global mobility, where we all know bureaucratic wait times are routinely measured in months, or let's be real, even years, a sub-14-day turnaround is just a massive, highly advantageous statistical outlier. It's an incredible return on precision. This proves a really fascinating reality about this specific authorization system. Yes, the legal boundaries of the TN visa are exceptionally rigid, and they are highly unforgiving of even minor administrative errors. But mastering those exact boundaries yields unmatched speed. The cause here is precise alignment with strict variables. The effect is the near immediate elimination of administrative friction. It unlocks rapid U.S. work authorization with a level of efficiency that is almost unheard of in other systems. So we're going to wrap up our explainer today with a thought-provoking question for you. As general immigration pathways just continue to clog up with massive global wait times, are incredibly strict, hyper-specialized analytical pathways, like the TN visa, going to become the definitive blueprint for the future of international talent acquisition? It's definitely something to think about.
Thank you so much for joining me as we deconstructed the variables behind this system. I really hope this deep dive clarified the underlying mechanics for you, and I will see you next time as we decode another complex topic.